Uh, these are a nice little gift. I've made, I started off doing a stump off, and I'll pass these around so you guys can see them. But this isn't my idea. Like everybody else in this room, we see an idea, copy it, modify it. There's a gentleman out in Idaho, I believe, and I had his name a little bit ago and escaped to that. But anyway, he did playing with stumps and a whole bunch of them just had stumps. That's why it's a good idea. And I took it one step further. I put them on them and sent them on. They said, in Pennsylvania, we have roots on our trees. So anyway, this was like the original idea with the bomb. So look at it. And so, and incidentally, when I talk about gifts, I'm on my 6th order for wedding for ring boxes. Well, one was for a lady called me up. She goes, "Can you make me one of those? I want to give my son and check, and I want to put it in a box." And she made her check to make sure it was big enough for that. Another guy called me. He's a pipe smoker. He wanted to keep the pipe tobacco. So a lot of different uses for it other than just when you're making them. When I get into it here, I'll mention you want to know what you're going to use it for. Because, you know, if you're just going to put a couple little rings in it, you want to shallow. If you want to make a toothpick holder out of it, get one over there. If the toothpicks have the fit. So anyway, from the stump box, I went into toothpick holders and pencil holders. Now, I'll pass this around at 2 different directions. You establish centers this way, put a tenon on, deep tenon, typically about 3/8, whatever your chuck will do. Get on these centers and put a shallower tenon. That way you can grab all of this and you can grab all of that. The rest of it's carving. So just a little variation on the. Now, as we're doing these, of course, you all saw Mark's little puzzle at Christmas gift exchange, so I had to make one of them. And if you wanted the Christmas gift exchange, come up later and figure out how to get this out without touching the wall. Mark will show you. So, while I'm out here, I'm going to talk about shape a little bit. That doesn't look anything like a tree. But I brought it along just to show you. You still, even though it's a tree, you want to think about what a tree is. So I've never seen a tree go like this. But I wanted to bring it along just to get your mind moving. You know, you do have to think ahead. So these are the steps I'm going to go through tonight, except this is for a toothpick holder. That's this. Make a rough shape. Now, if we're doing a stump box and make the rough shape, and it's not going to be drilled out like this, we're going to actually make the box for it. We'll go through that step. Then we're going to take and rub part of it. With Dremels, I have a different tool here with a little 2-inch mini grind. We're going to burn it. And then this is the finished product here. First time I did this demo, somebody said to me, "Why can't we get it burned with a quick burn? You get a lot of detail in." Somebody said, "Why can't we just use the quick?" So I went home and used the quick. Totally different thing. And it Nice. And depending on what you want to do, which effect is a lot quicker. But I'm sorry, I'm talking with Ken. Which effect is a lot quicker. Wood burning takes, depending on what burner you have, not for 2 hours. Wood burn. You get a little liquid first. So we're going to start with a dry block of wood for a stump. For a toothpick holder or pencil holder, it doesn't matter. But anytime you do a box that has to be dry, the lid isn't going to fit in 2 days. So I've already put my X's on here, find my center. Incidentally, I used to have a regular awl, and I would set it down there and get a little hammer and tap, tap, tap. Harbor Freight, I don't know, $5 or something. And it's got a little spring in there. Makes it really easy. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put 2 tenons on. We need 2 tenons because when we cut it apart, we have to do some work on the top. So we have to grab it and cut. And then we have to form the bottom, all of both sides out. I do most of my turning with a half-inch, either a V grind or a parabolic grind pull gun. You can rough this thing out with the spindle roughing gouge if you want. I just have to carry less spools this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a tenon on this end, turn around, put it in the truck, put a tenon on the other. Then I can start working. This is going to be my top. So I can turn this down a little bit, make it round. I want to keep the bottom a little bit square so I have room for my roots. Uh-oh. Okay. I'm checking I turned my speed down. I'm going to I turned my speed down on my lathe because I don't want any surprises. And quite a few years ago, I was at a symposium in Cincinnati. Demonstrator turned his lathe on. It was on full speed, and the piece went flying up and hit the ceiling. So that was a good lesson for me. I just wanted to get the bulk of the square off of there. I use dovetail jaws. So using dovetail jaws, instead of making 3 or 4 steps to make my tenon, I have uh, you can see this from out there. There you go. And you see the angle on that. It's ground to the angle of my jaws. So all I have to do is go in and I have a dovetail. It's very quick. If you do a lot of safe turning, it saves time. If you don't do a lot of turning, in fact, I will demonstrate how I would do that without my special ground tool. In order to make a dovetail, I'm going to come in. Not where I want it to be. I'm just saying. So I'm using a skew as a negative rake scraper. I go in there, but that is too much of an angle, so I have to take a little bit like that. And I'm approximating, but that's roughly what I want for my tenor. The other way that you would do that would be the same thing, go in with some kind of a scraper and a narrow cording tool. I happen to have a little kitchen knife that I grind onto a cording tool. In that way. So right there are two different ways to make a dovetail. This is just actually it's a good piece of steel, but it can be anything, an old screwdriver. And I know I've got the right angle on there for my jaws. Now on a wood turning chuck, it's a good idea to tighten, I'd say all four sides, but there's only two, especially on green wood. This is dry wood. It's not as critical. The green wood will compress a lot. So that's why we want to leave this up here for safety. That's why we want to tighten that good and tight. Wood turning jaws are not built to the same precision as metal turning jaws. So you have to take up the spot and play a little bit. Okay, so we're going to take the sharp edges off of this. And then we'll put that dovetail on this end also. Now, how do I know it's the right size? These jaws have like an inch of play in. So if you're working with something that if you really need to be precise, then you don't want a big gap in the jaws like this. You want maybe an eighth of an inch, and we're not after precision here. So this is going to be our top, bottom. Clean that up a little bit, make it look a little bit like a stump. Most of our stump stuff is going to be carved. These are where our roots are going to be. And I'm gonna leave a lump on there if I want to put a burrow on it. Now, if I want to put a burrow on this, uh, Ken, can we get your camera a second? I kind of wanted to show, and that camera isn't showing it real well either. But if this is part of the tree, this can't be bigger than this. Or it's going to look like that box that I told you looked funny. So I need to come down here a little bit more. The tree wants to go like this from the base. Until it's good and dry, because it's hot. So the put it like that. So the burrow's a little bit lower on this one than it is here. But basically, our tenon is going to end up being our hinge with this when you cut the tree, flops over. So, you know, that's a pretty good shape there. So we're going to just, should have put the burrow up higher. We'll make our cut down there. So right now, I'm going to cut part the bottom off. I've got an 1/8" parting tool. I found out with an 1/8" parting tool, I can make a 1/4" part. But with a bigger tool, I can't make the 1/8". Oh, I'm going to go in a little more. And with the real small one, I'm going to part it off. Now you notice how I'm going different directions on that. I don't know if it did show up on there. I'm going in, but it starts to bind. So then I move over just a little bit, and I'm making the cut wider on the inside. And I'm down to about 1/4 inch here. So this will end up going inside the lid. I want to measure that. I need to recess that side. I'm touching the end near me with the calipers. I'm not touching the outside. If I touch the outside, it's going to just come back and smack me. That's a little bit smaller than I like. I don't know if the line showed up. Can we get this camera? Okay. So anyway, what I'm doing is just putting a little scratch in there, a little bit smaller than what we want. If if that scares you because one of those came back and smacked you one time, I didn't bring dividers with me, but you can measure. So you can measure this, which is 208 inches. You'd set your divider at 1 1/16. Put a little divot right in there for the center of your divider and end up with the same mark there. Two ways of doing the same thing. So now we're working on the top. I'm going to establish that where that mark is there that I made. I'm going to establish that before I do too much else. And then I'm going to face this off. This is a skew I'm using as a negative rig scraper. However you choose to do this, you can use a spindle gouge on it, a hole gouge. They get no. So once you've cleaned that up, you have to check it. Now I'm pretty straight across there. If you're not straight across, I'm going to pass this one around because I purposely made this one wrong. When I pass this around, it'll zoom there. Right. You will see in there where it doesn't meet. It touches on the outside and not on the inside. But since you're going to be carving this, you want it flat so that your joint looks right. So this is what not to do. Does everybody understand that about you want it flat? You know, if you're on a regular box and the outside touches and it's smooth all the way around, it really doesn't matter that much. But when you're carving, you're going to see that gap in the middle, like you'll see there. Now, I'm not going to do any sanding tonight, but I would sand this thing up real nice right there. And then I'm going to make a little, I don't know, a little recess for the lid. Since I have a lot of material here, I can make a big recess. Another negative rake scraper. It's ground on a little bit of a curve. I can clean that up a little bit. Then we're going to put a couple of lines in there just to show that it was turned. And if you want to, you can burn them. Hey, I burn. A lot of you know this trick, but I didn't know it for years. You can use a wire to burn out here, but the way to burn on a flat surface is a piece of dark wood, formica, and just press it in there, and it'll make a little accent. Incidentally, Home Depot and Lowe's have samples of this for free. At least the last time I looked, maybe they changed since then. They're little squares, but a little square lasts a long time. I'm checking my recess there and make sure that this will fit. And I need a little bit more. Yes, I checked for depth, and this can actually be a whole lot deep. But if it's shallow, your lid's not going to close. The glass between us, I'm having trouble. Well, the tent you're talking about this here, yeah, that's not. We're not going to really call that a tenon, but it's But I guess you could, yeah. So, and you see that doesn't fit, but it will when we're done because I left room. I made this smaller than that. So basically, until we're ready to do carving, the top is done. At this point, I'd sand it, put my finish in here, put my sand disc knife, put my finish out here. Like I said, I'm not going to do any sanding here, so there's no sense finishing. So now we have to fit this to this insert right here. Now we have to get a little bit more careful on our measurements. I need not quite an 1/8 off. Let me use the parting tool. I'm on a little bit of an angle. The reason I'm on a little bit of an angle, this has a taper to it. So if I put this in there, it's just fitting on the outside. So the outside is a tight fit. So that I know where to go now. If you're making a jam chuck, which we'll make later to take the bottom off of this, that you sneak up on it like that, that little paper, so that you don't get too small. Okay, that's real tight. What we're looking for here, we're looking for a fit that doesn't slop around, that can be taken off with one hand. This is a tight fit. If I come to put something in here, I have something in my hand and I can't put it in there. This is a proper fit. And then I can put whatever I want in. So tight fits, impress wood turners, a little bit of slop is what we need for this particular project. Or if you're making a jewelry box, you know, your your wife doesn't want to take her diamond earrings off and have to lay them down before she puts them in here. Okay, so this is that big what we're doing here. Okay, about halfway down, I get tight. I can take a little bit more. Also, checking across there too. I can take just the hair off the inside. In order to get a proper on any box, to get a proper fit, you have to take your time. Freshen that up a little bit. In here. Yes. As soon as I'm done with this, yes. And I'll pass one around so you can see that. The what Mark asked was, do I mark them for orientation? You'll notice on the ones I passed around, you had a burrow on there that told you where it goes. One of them here has a scar, like it was dragged with another log. You need something to, and you just a little bit more. Need something to make sure it's the same orientation. Because what's going to happen, even if this is dry wood, you've got a grain to it. And even if you have a finish on it, when the humidity changes, they're going to expand at different rates. And so if you get crossways, it's not going to fit right. Now, some people on a box will actually put a little toothpick or a dowel so that it fits in the right place. Take a little bit off the top here. Oh, this little knot here might have been one with it down. Okay. That's a really good fit there. I'm just gonna not get real fancy with the bottom of the box here. We'll just hollow it out a little bit. This is whatever you decide is going to go in it, what it's going to be used for. I'll do that on a demo day. So I'm not going to, you'll understand if I want to, whatever I want in there, I can go wherever I want that box. Going to do enough there to show. So at this point, I'm lining up an end grain on this. And this one's easier because I can see where the grain actually meets. So this is one from a different demo. But you can see that I marked, put a couple of marks on there so I knew where it was. It's not closing up because I've got a paper towel and I'll show you that. And that way I know that the grain line's up. This one I'll be able to follow the color one. Now, at this point, we're pretty much done with our turning. I'm going to take this off and refine and shape this a little bit more. So at this point, pretty much ready for carve. Telling you about that one-handed opening bit. So whenever we're ready to start, you saw on that one that passed around and put paper towel in there. Line up the colors. And that paper towel makes it right. Sometimes you need to, but now I wanted to pull a little different here because I made this a little bit big from a previous demo. But I wanted to show you that you need to get some gauge marks in here for your part. So what I did was I took my grinder and I just made little inserts there so that I don't get into the cloth part itself. That makes sense? Because, you know, first thing you know, you start going crazy on grinding. And next thing you know, you throw it away and start over. Okay, so that was basically box making 101. Does anybody have any questions about making a box? Good. So we're going to see 30 boxes next week or next month. I'm sorry. Boxes are fun. It's and they make nice little gifts. And you know, you can do plain or fancy, all kinds of designs on them. Whatever I'm going to put in them is, I mean, I have an idea what they're going to be used for before I start. So like, that one there's a toothpick holder. He was invited up to a friend's fishing camp and I made him a toothpick holder. instead of leaving it open so the mice can chew on a toothpick, I made a box. And then, and that's another one. These have all come out of demos, and that's the one that's the tight lid that one needs sanded, but it also needs burned and all the rest of the stuff there. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of carving. Since I do a lot of these, I invested in an Arbortech carver. This carver is probably in the neighborhood of $300. So it's a big investment if you're not going to do a lot of carving. I do a lot of carving otherwise, so I didn't mind making the investment. Your other choice, almost everybody has a Dremel. If not, you can buy one at Harvard Freight, really not a Dremel brand, but an off-brand, pretty reasonable. For the carving part of it, if you use a Dremel, this is a saber tooth or Petzl bit. I'll pass these around so you can see. They're $15 to $18. This is a Nampa company. I bought it at Kingsborough, but there's other places that sell it. It's got replaceable carbide tip. It's fairly expensive. It's like $80. Another carbide three-corner tool. I think they're the name of the company. This is a Harbor Freight tool, like $15. They'll all do the job. Some of them faster than others. I put them in holders just so they're easier to. They would go in the Dremel to get used. So I'm going to do a little bit of carving on this. I've got my guidelines on here, so I know where I want to go. I've got this in wood clamps, we'll call them, to hold it, because I don't want to mess up my chuck. I don't want to mess up my revolving center. I lock the lathe just for convenience. And at this point, this is where I'm going to put the head. And so there you go. Great field. So, or can we have the overhead? I think that's the only chance. Yeah, that's the only chance for us. I'm not going to do a lot of carving left, but you get the idea. It takes it off pretty quick. I use this for the initial carving to get it down to wherever that piece with all the samples is. That was like the initial carving. The detail carving I do with the Dremel. I've got this one. This is down carved with this tool. And there's no career. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I made them. Well, I mean, it first, it's okay. Come over the house, I'll put you out of me. So the carving with the arbor deck or with the rough bits with the Dremel get you down to it. So then we're going to get down to the detail. We can have the Dremel bit here. This was one of the ones that I passed around. It's got a real slim paper on it. I like this because I can get in and round and do the detail carving in it. I'm not looking for any particular pattern here, except I want to maintain that shape. I want to maintain that shape to the tree, not like this, but like this. This one, it's hard to pick up, but I've got a high spot here, so I will get that out of there. Incidentally, there we go. There it is. A Kevlar glove, which is what I should have put on before I turned you the A Kevlar glove, if this tool goes in here, we'll wrap the tool up and install it. This is an actual carving tool. Now, if you have something sharp, it can poke through it. So you could get a puncture with it. But on the high-speed carving thing, it'll actually follow through it. It's up to you. So they're a good investment. If you don't get them at a carving supply house, a fish skinning glove is the same thing. They're actually a bit heavy to do. And I apologize for not putting them in the start with me. Go up and have a little real spray. I'm not going to bore you with doing a lot of that. Basically, keep one around is what looks like the tree. Um, I don't know. So I want to make a comment about the roof. Yeah, I mean, I I like to, as I go around a little bit, if you can look at that one, it looks a little square. So I'm going to go and I'm going to knock the corner off here again because it doesn't look right. But basically, go out and look in the woods and look at a tree, and they clear out a little bit of the blood. We're trying to simulate an older tree, not a young tree. Because the older tree is the root killer. It just makes me laugh. So, you just keep carving on that until it gets to the end. Yeah, I would not somebody pulling the off a little bit. I don't want to go this mound, at least one side. Which is also with the, it's so much with the stump, which is the, toothpick holder. I will put one, start one end, put my straight down and have them in. Maybe, you know, there's a lot of different things to add in. I like light wood for the reason that I can use it as a marker on that little toothpick part is made out of rosewood. So I had to drive like the color. Even way hard. I started off doing the alcohol marketing. So it makes a hinge. And this is from Indiana there, hopefully. That's the one there. So we're gonna cut down with the hand saw. I think doesn't have. This is for that sort of automatic stuff. $2,000 a year. So I'm using a rough saw. I want lines in there. Put your chainsaw on. Yeah, I left a little bit extra on there. Everything's backwards when you're looking at it. So, there we go. So I left a little bit extra on there. The guy that did the chainsaw cutting didn't quite meet. I'm glad one of us do there. And so in order to make these little, as you saw when it came down, I'm pick away this tool right now. You can actually what really can do there is so again, you just keep grinding and picking until you get those little hairs at the knife. You know, don't know what to do on there. I don't want to do it. We build with the idea. Once we get to that point, you do the button. This where you really get your teeth in. Get you get most of the sawdust out of there. They have to do it. For I'm at that stage right now. So I, I have found out that this sort of lots of hard now seems to do a job for it. Have a range of different homes, all for detail, like finding pictures and things. It will do the job. It takes a little bit longer. It doesn't have the power. We built a grand squiggle style on out of a battery charger and melted one of the candles. It got two. I found out the battery charger style thing, I was using a heavy wire. And I had to turn the power off. And yes, it got a warning. But got too hot. You find out if I use all of wire, even the lighter bearded part of the cable, lighter gauge. Nichrome wire. Amazon. uh, you can actually buy wire from the manufacturer. Minute. Turn this stuff loose on you guys. Okay. Yes, you can see that. See that little bit of a red on it. On an orange. I don't want a real bright orange on it because it'll end up like melting the iron food. So I find out that if I just touch the gold, it'll actually melt its way through. Out on the roof, trying to like, I'm touching and it's staying fine. If I try and do this, drag, well, we're going to see. I expect my thing. Get too fast, but we see. So this part of the job takes longer than I'll go around and do the funding ritually on it. And then I come on a little bit of an angle. Tap, tap, tap. A little bit of an angle this way. Tap, tap, tap. What that does, instead of your bark looking like a long string, it breaks it into pieces for a place like this. You get a little more teeth to the real detail in these comes from the environment. So you burn a little while and look at it. I'll actually have to go back to the part. You guys don't come up there afterwards and try this. Burn a little, walk through it. Once it's all burned, once this thing is all burned, it'll be dark. It looks like a burned tree. If you want to stop there, I like to take a look like it's a rotted tree or a burned tree that has the moss. No, the flame burning will burn the top. The wire burning will burn underneath. The shadow there, or there. So, if I want it to look like that one on the end, you don't need to spend all the time with the wire burning. I think it looks nice. Just take more detail. What I'm doing here, by doing all this burning, you start building a varnish on it, like, and use the paint to dry brush paint on it, and that would work. Want to use dyes on it. Incidentally, wires come off of you. And I know you just spent an hour and a half working on that. Get all that burning done, and now I'm taking some of it off. That looks more like a tree. And if you put some marker pens on that or something, they get the different colors. Like I'll use some tan, some gray, with a little bit of green on it, and it looks really authentic. And that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, you could. These are like nothing. Okay. Jim Duxbury was here and taught us how to make horse paper. Jim Duxbury taught us how to make horse paper. Remember, they had a little gauge, made a horse paper. And he also showed us how to cut this off, put that right diameter in there, so that wheel fits on there. And then you take the other part and put the tail sauce against it and go. So that's, you know, we learn from other friends. And Jim has so many good ideas that we shouldn't possibly. More questions? More. Thank you. Thank you. I use Krylon mat spray. It's the same spray you buy at the art section. They put on like watercolors and different things like that. It's real fast dry. Just spritz it on. It dries in a bit. They make matte and gloss, obviously free on gloss. But that's what I like to use. I'm sure there are other mats anyway. Fun to me by a demonstrator years ago and review it. And it's available at all the that anywhere they sell can buy. Other questions? Okay. Okay. On the top of the yeah, I just put my foot on it and try to ring about the outside with the depth of box you want. So the other box is saying like that. Put that in there and maybe I can sit on and do it. It's basically just dot all the way around. Turn it here. Okay. Okay, Ken asked, I want the 2.6 to go out with it. In this one, they did it naturally. Uh, most of them, a good example of the heating roof system. Okay, so picking that up, you can see how I carved the one. The hole goes down straight. There's the way to hold it. But I carved this place. I had a bunch of wood and carved it. And I just took a little drum stand and rolled that out of it. It actually doesn't make the acoustic stand different, but it makes it look like the whole thing is accurate. Like I'm on the on side of this. Something a little different. Uh, like I was saying earlier, uh, that's, these are all with alcohol markers. This one, since it was rose field, I went a little light on it and said, so I just drive it. Driver, I think it's what if you had the slab, it's okay. And who else had it? What they had it? Uh, Five rushing effects on not really paint. Jab is rush in it and just place it on a paper towel or something till it's almost dry. You can set it. And it might take you 10 times as long to get there. On the puzzle, looks like anything's going on. Now, layer after layer. Some people, when they're dry brushing, will start with one color. Maybe give maybe on the first piece. Let's start with the blue. And then you might add a little red to it to get it a little bit. You might add a little bit of white to that. And actually dry brushing, you get a few little bit on these parts. Different colors like that. You're not all in the same place. It's just right. Yeah, the print the colors, which hard to find in all of it. Yeah, Bobby Bobby. I get them from you know, that actually I'm going to have because there's a it's and yeah, anyway, it's in my computer, so I also think about it. Yeah, the Prisma colors are tested to be very colorful. I don't know about it. Well, LASIK actually did a test years ago when we could it's a different dye, and it's I don't know how many times dye on wood. Different colors, one in the colors of one is soft, but one is fun, one is different, had different colors. And turned out that some of the dyes that advertising knows that made it today. It's different colors. I guess find the device quickly. Anybody else?